We're joined this morning by Greene County Mayor David Crum for our monthly get-together after Tuesday's County Commission meeting. Mayor Crum, as always, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Jim. It's good to be here speaking with you today, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to the citizens that are listening to this.
Well, obviously, Tuesday night's meeting, the big news was obviously passing on second reading the wheel tax increase, taking it from $20 to $55. So it's passed on second reading now. Would go into effect on May 1st. The citizens do have a prerogative to try and interrupt that by demanding a referendum on that. Where do you see things right now and where it's going?
I hope people will really look at our budget process and what the commissioners that came in September. We had a lot that have come in new that we believed there was a lot of places to cut. That now we understand the difficult financial position and condition that Greene County is in. We've had to take a tax anticipation note to make payroll. State Comptroller's Office has given some guidelines that we need to get our financial house in order. I believe this will take care of that. It gives a good increase of money to the general fund, and the general fund basically is those areas. If you look at the courthouse annex, all the services there. You look at the sheriff's department, the main courthouse, the jail, animal control, solid waste. A lot of those is where your general fund monies are at, the convenience centers. So it's going to help put that in some financial good position. The money that goes to the debt service, the $5 there, we have been for the last 2 or 3 years just kind of kicking the can down the road, as they like to use that terminology, trying to refinance when it comes due. We forget sometimes about the amount of money that the person that's processing the loan gets out of that. And this will take care of our debt as far as getting us in a position to actually pay the bonds when they come due, and maybe get some of that debt paid off, and takes care of that problem. Right now, I think we talked to Mayor Budget Director yesterday, and this year when we make our payment, it will have $4,000 extra left in that account. This extra influx is going to take care of us. The $3 for the volunteer fire departments, for the last several years, we've paid the insurance cost for them and given $5,000 a year, and it started out if money was available. Well, it's not been available, but it continues to come out of that general fund, so it's a recurring expense. By letting them know that that money's there, it gets them in a little better financial situation. I have had volunteer fire department people tell me that if that insurance money was taken away, that individual cost would be prohibitive for some volunteer fire departments. Your insurance that you have to pay on property comes back based on ISO ratings that are set. So if we can get our volunteer fire departments also with this money a little bit stronger shape to attach to some of those ISO ratings, it may help property owners in that. I can't predict that. But, hopefully that's one thing by that in place. The other $2, just kind of look at our buildings. We've not had in place a way to take care of maintenance and stuff, so it really gets us in a good financial position. This does.
I know you like to say that you can't predict the future, but what happens if a petition is filed and a referendum is asked for? Where do things go from there?
Well, the thing, it puts it on hold, and it comes back how much of these county services are mandated by the state that we do, that then the office holders can't fulfill the duties of their office. They're mandated to perform certain duties, and if they're unable to, and they file a lawsuit that they can't perform their duties based on what we're funding them, and it goes before a judge, and they lay out in their office the number of people they've had for years, and that we're either cutting people or cutting hours, and the workload's not decreasing. There's not fewer parcels of property that you've got to go out, and that Chuck Jeffers, as assessor of property's got to go out and look at. There's not fewer properties that Nathan Holt has got to take care of on getting taxes. There's not fewer cars out there that Lori Brian and her office is taking care of. So their workload's not decreasing. I have a concern. As I say, I can't predict the future, but I've had people that have seen this background longer than I have say that if it ends up before a judge, it's not going to be somebody here. It's going to be somebody of your Davidson or your Shelby that looks at our tax rate at 80th in the state and looks at what's being presented, and they're going to say, well, and you've not given your employees a raise in 7 years. We're going to take care of this. Greene County, here's your tax rate. And it's going to make the 15 cents I first looked at it balancing a budget seem pale. It's going to be much higher, I believe. Yeah.
Do you think that there could be other extreme measures taken? Do you think that there could be a possibility that, you know, a school might be, you know, shut down or something along those lines, or is that kind of have to be wait to be seen at this point?
Well, that comes up to the school board to make that decision. But if we cut their funding, then you can't maintain the same level that you've got. I mean, it's kind of, the convenience centers are the small amount there, but you're getting into those schools. We've cut back the first responder out at South Greene. Are we willing to cut back ambulance service and say we can't afford as many ambulances as we've got? We're going to cut back 1 or 2 of those at other outlying stations to increase our response time. Sheriff's Department, are we going to start taking reports over the phone? And, so there are consequences to that action. We're not asking for a Cadillac. We're trying to run on a budget Chevrolet. And, so we've looked at it in great detail. We're trying to be as physically conservative as we can with this. We've looked at little things, but there's not big budget items out there to cut the amount that can be cut and balance this budget.
Do you think that that's the biggest misconception about the whole budget and everything, that there's all this money that is just waiting to be cut, and that you guys just aren't seeing it or not following through on it or something along those lines? Is that kind of what you see?
I think you can look at the commissioners that you voted in that thought that there was ways out there and places to be cut, and county government is run different. There's so many things that are mandated that we comply with and do that it's just not there. There may be little pennies here and there that we're going to keep looking for and digging through and trying to save those things. But to balance this budget and to get us in the financial shape that we need to be in, it's not a spending issue. We're spending very frugally. It's a revenue issue. And it comes back part of it on the economy is, we've lost $1 million of revenue in a year just on CDs that interest rates have fallen. That's one of those double-edged swords. It's a good time to borrow money if you're trying to do expansions and things, which we're not. We're trying to pay off our debt with this. But it's also a tough time that if you've got some money in the bank, you're not making interest income off of it.
And then you find out yesterday or on Tuesday that the city, which is going to be dealing with its own budget crisis coming up this year, they are going to start asking, possibly as part of the way to balance their budget, is to start looking at tipping fees.
It is. That was, I think, $600,000, wasn't it?
Yes.
That Greenville's been paying theirs. The other municipalities haven't. It comes back to county's responsibility if it comes down to it, much like education. Greenville's decided to have their own school system. They could put that off on the county. And that comes back, part of that, I can't predict the future. If Greenville says we're not going to pay our tipping fees, where's that $600,000 come from? I look at the budget. I look at this extra $35. I truly believe it's going to get us in the financial shape that we can without some unforeseen circumstances that I can't predict.
Getting back to the meeting from Tuesday night, one of the things that I kind of am curious about a little bit, and something that you see on an agenda, is about a cooperative purchasing agreement. Just explain a little bit about what the county's getting into with that cooperative purchasing.
We can buy a lot of things off state bids. We buy our vehicles much cheaper than what you look at the Impala that's typically used by sheriff's department and stuff. It's bought much cheaper off a state bid. It's group buys, and that's what these are, specific purchasing agreements or groups that have gone together to pool their buying power, and we're able to dovetail off of their purchasing buying power, and so that gives us some options. We looked at one last month, and we looked at these two. As we continue to look at those, there was one last month we looked at that we actually pulled that we don't qualify for, but it gives us some chances to save some money and some things through entering into these agreements.
And another resolution that passed on Tuesday night was about an employee wellness program, and just trying to get people to get up a little bit and get moving, and to keep themselves from kind of just becoming sedentary at their desks.
Well, it is. Wellness is a big thing. I still volunteer on the YMCA board. It's one of those things that's important to us as a community. It's important also from a financial standpoint for the county. I mean, insurance cost is quite high, and if we can basically implement wellness programs to get people to pay attention to those particular high things as far as hypertension, blood pressure, diabetes, and cholesterol, and just to get a little bit up and moving and get that little break during the day to kind of refocus and come back a little bit more refreshed was what that was on. We're really pushing our wellness programs there, and to try to give employees an incentive to get up and get moving, and to get in a little better condition so they don't have those health issues. It's better for our entire community, if we have a healthy community for our overall health care cost.
Sheriff Hankins spoke during the meeting on Tuesday night, and he outlined some areas that he's been able to save a lot of money, or projects being able to save a lot of money, and that's got to be, hopefully, from your standpoint, hoping that's kind of a inspiration to others as well, to try and find areas of revenue. He says it's not necessarily he's making cuts in areas, but he's trying to find additional revenue streams, and I'm sure that's something that you're very grateful for.
It is. It helps us in a lot of ways, and that kind of goes back to my prior position. As he described it, you have people sitting in there on violation of probations or your Class E and maybe D felonies that can't make bond, and they're sitting in there, and by the time it gets through the court process and they plead guilty, they've got their time served and are leaving. The county has to pick up that tab for that prisoner while they're in there until they actually plead to that state charge. They're not being brought in from somewhere else. There are local people that have committed crimes here in Greene County that are just being held there until they become transferred as classified as a state inmate. Once they get classified as that, then we start getting revenue from the state. So he's worked, and the judges are cooperating to try to get those people processed through the system quicker, especially those violation of probation people that they want to get their time pled and their time served and get started, and so it does help generate revenue. So I mean, it's there's not a downside to that at all.
One of the things that came up at the meeting last night was that there's a open position now for a constable in the 2nd District. Bobby Collins has submitted his resignation that he is stepping down as his term is ended as of January 5th, and that there is an opening now. And if anybody's interested in pursuing that, what should they do?
There's an application process that they can come by my office over at the Courthouse Annex, and they'll have till noon on January the 30th to come in and pick up that application. At that time, then we will turn it into the election office to certify to make sure they live within that district and that they meet the qualifications. And then their names will appear on the next county commission meeting list, and the commissioners will choose for that unexpired term until the next, I understand, county-wide election. It would go on the ballot then.
Just jumping back to talk about the convenience centers for a moment. Have you got any feedback from anyone about keeping them closed on Wednesdays and changing the hours otherwise?
The hours are the big thing, and what I tried looking at was something that was consistent that people could look at, and in my brain, okay, 10 to 6 every day. I don't have to think, is it open some mornings or not? Now, I'm still getting some calls that it is inconvenient for people on their way to work that maybe want to drop off their garbage. I'm not going to try to make changes midstream on that. Those are the hours we're going to stay with unless something drastic were to come up through the rest of this budget year. Next year we'll look and see, maybe we can do a couple of those early morning hours opening up at 7, and then a couple of the late day hours that we can make up there. And so we will look at that to try to make it as convenient as we can within the budget parameters and for next year.
I know we've talked before about the budget process for the upcoming year, and you've always said, start looking at it in January. Well, January's here now. Is this something that's already, are the wheels starting in motion already?
It is. Our budget director's given everyone their budget. They're looking at it and bringing back their numbers for us to already start processing and putting in some preliminary budget numbers to see where we'll be next year. And so we're already starting that.
Anything else that's going on in the county right now that the citizens may be interested in knowing about?
Through the partnership, we had a site visit from National Junior College last year to host their tennis tournament here. I went out and was able to meet with the person doing our site and ask him, I said, what's our downside? And he said, our only downside is they require 10 tennis courts, which we have, but 6 are out at the college and 4 are down on Hal Hennard Road. He said that is a downside because they would be at 2 different locations. But he said otherwise the things we did with the NAIA golf that we have in place, our location really fits in well with what they're looking at. He couldn't believe we didn't get the baseball tournament, was planning on calling the guy after seeing our facility out there and asking, how did they not get this thing? So, that can bring in, that was a great boom to us locally, the NAIA, not just the local tax revenue that came in, but also the exposure that goes out to all those communities that are coming in here and staying and seeing Greene County.
You mentioned hotel motel tax revenue, and that kind of jogged my memory about a discussion that happened during the meeting on Tuesday night about organization, particularly the one that was brought up at the meeting was the 4-H camp, and about their collection of or non-collection of hotel motel tax, as they said, because they just didn't know that they needed to be collecting it. What's kind of the status on that, and how's that going to work?
They've been going through that process of looking at those that we're not collecting, and I know Andy and completely understand where he's coming from in his facility that he didn't know he needed to collect, and we'll do that going forward. The commission probably a year and a half ago had said whenever they wanted an independent audit that they would go back 3 years and attempt to collect those. I think Andy's was about $1,600 out to 4-H camp. He, of course, wouldn't charge that to nonprofit groups, but if you're having a wedding or other events and things out there, that it would come up. And he used the example that up until just a few years ago, he didn't charge sales tax on concessions. And it was the opinion that he's taking it in retail sales that he would do that. So I understand where he came up from that, but what we found in that is most people were in compliance and really close in their compliance. There wasn't, a concerted effort to withhold that. It was more people like he and maybe some of these small bed and breakfasts that just didn't realize they were to be collecting that.
How's that audit process going right now? Where does it stand, and where's it going?
I talked to them probably a month in to kind of see, and they're just continuing to process. And I think he said he had been audited, Jim, about a month ago, something like that, and had been gotten his notification. And to him, he said that was the first time he'd ever got any notification that knew he needed to be. So there was very few left for them to go out and take a look at.
My final question for you is, it's been, well, gosh, now almost 4 months, I guess, going on 5 months that you've been on the job now, and have you reached a comfort level? Are you comfortable with where you are? Are you comfortable with the decisions that have been made and what's going on so far?
I think we've all done the best that we can with where we're at. We've made some good movement forward, I believe, working well together. I think overall, of course, Sheriff Hankins and I go back a number of years, so, we communicate back and forth on things. David Weems and I, work well together. I think there's just a real sense of let's try to work together and do what's best for Greene County. I told people I thought I worked before, but my days are packed full, and it's just busy the entire day, and I'm really working hard, enjoying it. I really continue to believe it's where I'm supposed to be right now. As I told people, we'd prayed about it a long time before I ran, and I really think it's where I'm to be right now. I'd got a text from someone I used to work with asking if I was wanting to go back. I said, it's really time for that change, and I believe it is. And so really happy with the way things are going. Appreciate the support, and all I can say is on this wheel tax, I hope the community will really look at what we're trying to do, that we're trying to get ourselves in financial shape to be able to go forward with our future, and that they will support this and understand that we have a revenue problem, and we're trying to take care of it in what we think is the most fair way that we can. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. As I say, it takes out of my personal disposable income to pay that extra money, and I'd rather have it to go to the movies or whatever bills that I may have to pay. But, I really believe it's something we need, or I wouldn't have proposed it.
Greene County Mayor David Crum, we always appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.